Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Kitaab Klub. Today, I will be in conversation with Yosha Gunasekera, the author of our March book, The Midnight Taxi. Just to give you guys a quick intro about Yosha, Yosha is a Sri Lankan American attorney who represents people who have spent decades behind bars for crimes they did not commit. She teaches a course at Princeton University focused on wrongful conviction and exoneration. Yosha is a former Manhattan public defender and has written and spoken extensively on the criminal legal system. She lives in New York City with her husband. The Midnight Taxi is her debut novel. Hi Yosha, welcome to Kitaab Club. I am so glad to have had The Midnight Taxi as our March book for the book club, and I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored you chose my book as your book club pick, and I'm just really excited to chat with you today.
Yeah. Okay, to start us off, can you tell me what led you to writing books? Like, what was your process? Like, was it something that you knew you always wanted to do at some point, or was it like a recent thing, like with your job and like wanting to write about people that you've not seen on the page before? Like, what was it like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved to write. I remember
Hmm.
making up stories and writing as a young kid. I was always writing in middle school and high school, fiction stories. But when I, went to college and then went to law school, I just thought this wasn't the path for me. I thought, lawyers, they write legal briefs, they're logical, they're serious. Like
Hmm.
fiction isn't, something that I can pursue. And I didn't even think I had time for it. But I really just couldn't help myself. I mean, I'm a voracious reader. I love reading, and I couldn't help but start to write snippets of things down and have these ideas. And I didn't necessarily even think it was going to go anywhere. I thought maybe I was just going to be writing for myself and writing for fun. And then
Hmm.
before I knew it, I started, I had a novel. And so I think it wasn't my intention. I didn't
Hmm.
even think that I was a creative person, to be honest, but it was just such a fun release after, a very serious and intense day of lawyering and being with clients. It was a really nice way for me to kind of like wind down, or it was a nice way for me to start my day. So it just started kind of as a hobby and then, became
Hmm.
more serious.
Wow, that's amazing. So, since you said like it became like it was a hobby and it was like a snippets and then it turned into a whole book, was that book The Midnight Taxi? Was that your first?
No, it wasn't actually. I've written many other things. Most of them I have not showed anyone. They have stayed
Mm-hmm.
in my desk drawer. And I think for me, it was like teaching myself like how to write.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a lot of it was written during COVID, where,
Mm-hmm.
I was living alone. Other than like watching TV and doing my job remotely, I
Mm-hmm.
had time to be able to write. And so I was reading craft books, I was writing. I had another book that with a previous agent that didn't sell. So I
Mm-hmm.
had been writing for some time before the Midnight Taxi came to fruition. So it wasn't my first book. So to anybody who is out there and writing, it
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes isn't your first book that sells, and that's totally normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's similar for me. Like, I have a lot of different books that I've been working on and finishing, but it's more so I can get a feel of what I enjoy in writing and like figuring out how my writing style works. And so it's been helpful to get closer and closer to the book that I know that is my work that I want people to read and stuff. So that's definitely helpful to hear. So then, what was like the thing that led you to writing this book? Was there like a initial like instigative moment, like or like a spark that you had that led you to writing this book?
Yeah, there was a couple of separate things that made me start thinking about taxi drivers in particular. I
Mhm.
was working a night court shift, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's representing people at night. And so I was leaving
Mhm.
court at like 1 a.m. I was looking for either a cab or was about to call an Uber, and then I saw a yellow cab waiting. And I
Mhm.
got in, and this cab driver intentionally would wait outside the courthouse around that time to pick up lawyers because he was really interested in hearing more about true crime, hearing more about how the court system worked. And in
Mm-hmm.
New York City, we are always so busy. We never really interact with, cab drivers or other service people. And it was this really nice moment of
Mm-hmm.
human connection that we
Yeah.
had that got me to think about taxi cab drivers who are really like essential workers here in New York City. I
Mm-hmm.
started thinking about them and how their livelihoods were affected through COVID. And then I was also at the time dating my now husband, who's comes from a family of taxi cab drivers. His father was a taxi cab driver, and his grandfather was a taxi cab driver who got shot in the head while driving a cab, lived to tell the tale, and then went back to cab driving. So it's always been like this very interesting part of, our family lore. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then it really just got me thinking, and I started seeing taxi cab drivers everywhere. And so there is a place that I describe in the book called
Yeah.
Curry Hill, and there's a taxi stand, and there's not very many taxi stands anymore in New York City, but there's a taxi
Mm-hmm.
stand that always had a ton of yellow cabs. The drivers were people who looked like me. They were eating, at these local restaurants that I also loved. And it really just got me thinking, what are the stories behind these essential service workers? Because when you think of New
Mm-hmm.
York City, you think of a yellow cab, but you so rarely think about the person who's driving the cab. And I think they have really interesting stories. And so that's really, it came from me wanting to highlight stories of service workers here in New York City that really keep the city running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing about I feel like because even like the way you described like how that cab driver would like wait outside the like that's exactly what Shrivati does kind of in this
Mhm.
book. So it's like interesting how that led you to writing this and like was like a little bit the cab driver was an inspiration for what Shrivati becomes.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting. And yeah, I feel like even in like that theme of service workers and like wanting to highlight like taxi drivers is like so well done in this. I think also just like it makes it so like the depth in the book is so much more um authentic. I feel like with like I knew that it felt authentic, but like hearing how much connection you have to like the taxi drivers in New York City and like also just like your love for the city, like it really showed through in this, I feel like. So that definitely like was one of my favorite parts of the book. So yeah, I think that one really came through in that way. So then what were like some of the things in writing that like helped you bring these themes together, and like what were like some of your like favorite scenes that you wrote in this?
Yeah, I mean, I really loved writing a lot of this book because I think I was able to write about some serious themes that I care about in my professional career and, personally, of course, as well. But I was able to
Mhm.
write it in kind of a fun and humorous way, which wasn't my initial instinct. But I kind of felt
Mhm.
like when I was writing this, we were still kind of in COVID times and the world felt dark. It still kind of feels dark and depressing. And I wanted to write something that I felt like I would want to read, maybe could read in a day, something that was kind of like this compulsive page turner, but also had some heft. I wanted readers to be able to take away, a little bit more knowledge about how the criminal legal system works. Of course, it's a work
Mhm.
of fiction. There's certainly fictionalized aspects, but the actual
Mhm.
criminal court system, the way that I describe it, and, the information disadvantage, the way that police treat people of color, like that is very real. So in some ways, while it's hard to write those scenes because
Mhm.
it's horrible what
Yeah.
happens to people, it's also felt really authentic to
Mhm.
what I do. So I really enjoyed that. But I also really enjoyed, and we were discussing just like the food scenes are really fun for me because I love the New York City food scene. I think we're so lucky to live in this city that has so many different cultures, so many like immigrant communities that have truly incredible food. And I really didn't want to just highlight food in Manhattan, but food
Mhm.
across New York City. And I was very intentional intentional, including all five boroughs, because
Mhm.
there's amazing food everywhere. And I think people don't realize that. They really stick to Times Square or they stick to, just, Midtown, when in reality, like New York City is huge and it's really
Mhm.
expansive. And so those scenes and just like exploring these different neighborhoods, which I have done as, living in the city for 10 years, it was really fun to be able to share that with the readers.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like even that like came across even with like that aspect that Shruti has where she knows exactly where anything is. Like she has like the map of New York City in her head. Like it's just like that and like I think also what you said, like your knowledge from your job of like being able to authentically and accurately portray a lot of the legal system, like that definitely came through. And I feel like yeah, like there's like so much like it's like dark and like obviously has like those aspects that are like horrifying to imagine happening to you or someone you love, but then also it has like that cozy mystery vibe, and then also it has the part where it's like I just need to know what happens. I just need to keep reading, and it's like short chapters, the fast pace of it all. Like I think those like feel kind of like even like the cozy mystery with like those dark aspects feel like a juxtaposition, but like it like works and like blends so well in this book. I like read I think this book in like maybe 3 sittings because I was like I literally cannot stop. I need to know what happens. I need to know how they find out who it was and like all of those things. So yeah, I love that aspect of it. um what you were saying before, like how you like got into writing and you would like start your day with writing or like end your day, is that what it's like now? Like what is your writing process also? Because in like a month ago you had a baby, so like how has that like shifted your writing process? Like how has it been adjusting to that as well?
Yeah. I mean, I used to write really a lot in the mornings
Mm-hmm.
because that's when my brain is like the freshest.
Mm-hmm.
And I would write a lot on the weekends. But now that I've had a baby, things are so crazy. I'm still, working on my class as well. So I've been very
Mm-hmm.
busy. So really write whenever I can get a chance. Like I can't,
Mm-hmm.
if it's morning, evening, if it's like late at night, if there are like 20, 30 minutes, like I feel like I can still get words out on the paper I can edit. I used to think that I needed like 4 hours of quiet, uninterrupted time, and like that's not the reality anymore. And I think
Yeah.
it's almost made me more efficient because when I
Mm-hmm.
get that, like when she goes down for a nap, I know I have an hour and it's like the most productive hour of my life
Mm-hmm.
because that's I'm not gonna get any more time maybe for the rest of the day. So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's like in some ways it's made me a little bit more productive, but truly whenever I can write, I try to write. And, it's also how, I think raising a kid is, it's they say it takes community. So I'm very lucky to have had some support from my parents and, so that's been helpful too.
Yeah. I feel like at least for me, this has been the case when like before I used to feel like I need like uninterrupted time of writing and that's when it, but like I've since like starting my program and like being like so busy here, like I feel like the more busy I am, the better my writing is in that short amount of time that I actually end up making for it. So yeah, I can relate to that a little bit, obviously. Okay, so moving back to the writing aspects of this, since you said like those moments portraying the legal system accurately was like one of your favorites to write, but also the hardest to write, were there any other aspects of the book or just like scenes that you found difficult to write, or like what's like your process with like writer's block? Like how do you surpass that and things like that?
Yeah, I think like sometimes like the kind of actiony scenes are not
Mm-hmm.
always something that's comes naturally to me. I haven't always I think that this is book is like more upmarket book club fiction. I have
Mm-hmm.
also written things that feel a little bit more literary, which I think literary leans a little bit less actiony, a little bit less like fast paced. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, like making sure I was getting the pacing correctly was a challenge because I think that you want to explore like the character's interiority, but you also need to be keeping up with the plot and you also need to be having twists and turns. And so that was a challenge. I realized that I am someone who needs to outline a book. I can't
Mm-hmm.
um I tried to just pull this out from my head, and I think it's why it took so many drafts. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, for me, going for the second book, like, having a very detailed outline has made the writing process like 10 times easier.
Okay, I will ask you more about the second book because I am very, very curious. I'm like also someone who cannot, like, if I start something, I need to immediately read it. And so that's why I purposely didn't read the first two chapters because I knew I would be like so antsy for the next book immediately if I read it. So I haven't looked it up, but I do want to know more about it. So I'm going to ask you in a bit. But moving to a fun question, if there was a song to describe the book, what do you think it would be? Or do you listen to music while you write, or are you like you
I
need quiet?
like sometimes I
Yeah.
do. Usually it's like instrumental stuff,
Okay.
so it might be like instrumental pop songs or classical
Mm-hmm.
music, but sometimes I get distracted by
Yeah.
songs with words. So like
Mm-hmm.
yeah, some like good background, no word
Yeah.
orchestral music is always good.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a hard question. I mean, I think that I would have to, I think like just based on like tongue in cheek, like there's a song by Joni Mitchell called Big Yellow Taxi. I think like Counting Crows did a like cover of it. And it
Mm-hmm.
other than the name, like there is, I don't often talk about this, but there is like an environmental element to the book. And that book is, I think like Joni Mitchell wrote that song because it's about like she's in a beautiful location, but then she sees like all of this like destruction of nature. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that kind of speaks to one part of the book.
Yeah.
So I'd probably pick that. I'd probably pick that
Okay.
song. But as far as lyrics, I'd really have to like think about it a little more, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you have any that you think would match the characters, like the main three? Shrivati, Amaya, and Alex, I guess.
That is a good question. I mean, I think there's a song called Midnight Rambler by Rolling Stones, which would be probably fit maybe like Siri, maybe even Amaya. Well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe Siri would be like, I think there's like an Elvis song called Follow That Dream that would maybe be for Siri, maybe Midnight Rambler for by the Rolling Stones for Amaya.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there is that song, which I mean, I don't love. Oh my, and now I said Siri, and so my iPhone over here is
Oh.
to pick up on what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
There's there's a really funny song that's old. I don't know, I'm dating myself, but it wasn't me by Shaggy. That's just like a
Oh.
default song for the,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think that those would be my song choices.
Yeah, I can definitely I can picture. I don't know the first two songs. I will have to look them up, but I do know it wasn't me, so I think that makes a lot of sense for that. So
Yeah.
very interesting. Okay, since this book has been out since February, almost 2 months now, what is some advice you would give to writers of diverse backgrounds?
Yeah, I mean, my advice is to just keep writing your stories. I think that, I'm really glad that I was able to stay true to myself and to have not one, but two essentially main characters who are Sri Lankan American. And I think
Hmm.
like our voices are really important. And I think, especially if you're writing from your own background or culture, like that's a very unique perspective. And so I think that that's really important. I think people can get discouraged because publishing still is largely catering towards certain people. It's largely, it's historically, represented largely, white authors, but I think that that is changing. So I would say, continue to keep at it. And I think, a lot of focus is on the first week of publication. And I think if you write a book, like it's in the world for, in perpetuity. And so I think it's important to continue to just, reach out to people. Like even, I mean, this is like, for example, this is a
Mhm.
wonderful connection, and it's, weeks after my book came out. But I think
Mhm.
that a lot of books have a long tail. So just to keep kind of engaging with readers, and I just, yeah, I'm always humbled when anybody, messages me and saying they read it, because it's truly such an honor. There's so many amazing books out there. And the fact that anyone took the time to read mine is just like the most flattering, complimentary thing. And so I think it's just continuing to put ourselves out there, because I think people do want to hear our stories and books. I know I do. So, yeah, just it can be tough, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, I love that. Even like imagining someone picking my book out of like so many good books that keep coming out, and like yeah, that feeling. I'm excited to hopefully feel that feeling someday. But yeah, that's very motivating to hear. Okay. So, like me, I'm sure, like, even though this is like so like Sri Lankan and like so, beautiful in its representation of the country and its like people, I feel like I still had like so many things, like different things that like I related to as a South Asian woman. And like even like the parents' relationship and like things like that, like was so interesting to see. And I felt so represented. So I feel like I'm sure there are going to be many other people who are going to see themselves in this book. And I wonder if you had something you would want to say to them.
Yeah, I hope they enjoyed it, because I wrote it, it's a book for everyone, but I really did write it for other South Asian readers as well, because I grew up wanting so desperately to see someone who looked like me as a main character in a book, and there just really wasn't any, especially in mysteries and thriller spaces.
Mhm.
And so I just hope and people continue to feel seen in these books, and that it really is just kind of a nod to our culture. It's a nod to being a South Asian woman, to the expectations that often are thrust upon us for those of us who are, first generation or have immigrated to the US from another country. I hope it speaks to them as well, because it can be, I mean, it is like such a unique cultural experience that just isn't always out there. And I think we can only get better representation by continuing to put ourselves out there and continuing to write what we know. And so I'm really grateful, and I really hope that people continue to spread the word about the book. I think as someone who is a debut author, a person of color, and truly, even if I wasn't either the thing of those things, it's so hard to get the word out in a saturated market. So I'm always really grateful when people share the book, especially in the South Asian community.
Yeah, I feel like like there's already so like we're having so many more like books come out now that are of people of color and like South Asian people. But even then, like I'm like even as you said it, like I was thinking back, I feel like there's still so much space in mystery, thriller, and like speculative fiction where we don't see a lot of South Asian representation. And I feel like, yeah, that's definitely like something to think about. Like I feel like I'm seeing some, but I'm like there's definitely more that can be done. And I'm hopeful that more people will go after their dreams and like right. Okay, last question. Can you share anything about your upcoming next book? Any like themes or like anything that you can share?
Yeah, so I am so thrilled to be able to continue the series. So it is the second book. So it's going to have some of the same familiar characters that I hope readers have loved. It's going to be a mystery set in New York City, but it's going to be a different side of New York City. It's not. It's going to be kind of the hidden history of New York City, which I think is a part of New York City that I'm really interested in. Things that parts of the city that are hidden figuratively and literally. I think there's a lot of interesting things. And so that plays into the mystery. There is a lot about the history of New York City itself in the book. There's a lot of twists and turns. And of course, because social justice issues are really important to me, there's another social justice issue that's at the heart of this book that is a little bit different from book one. And so I really hope that readers, get the same things that they loved about book one, but if totally fresh, new mystery that I hope keeps people guessing till the very end.
I'm so excited. I love the characters in this book, so I am very, very excited to go through another mystery with them. That's gonna be, yeah. And even just like I can already imagine, I hope at least that there is gonna be food mentions in that one as well.
Yes.
So already looking forward to making more recommendation, like bucket adding things to my bucket list. So very, very excited. This has been so, so helpful and so nice. I'm so glad I got to read this book, but also to talk to you about this and just like about publishing and writing as a South Asian woman. Yeah, I had a lovely time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for reading. This has been so fun.
Of course. If you haven't read The Midnight Taxi, I highly recommend checking it out, especially before the next book comes out next year, hopefully. Buying the book from local independent stores or requesting them at your libraries. And make sure to follow her Instagram page for updates and news about her upcoming works. And I'll link it in the description below. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Because the book is set in New York and like this picture is like so iconic to New York. One of my roommates is from New York, so when she was going home for spring break, I gave her my book to go take pictures of it around New York.
Oh, I love that. That's so fun.
Yeah. And obviously, there's like so much about New York. I need to like discuss a lot about the New York aspect of this book as well with you. I'm also, because I'm going next week, so I like how much of like the places, like the food places that you mentioned in this is like accurate? Like, can I actually go there and like have those?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There, Curry in a Hurry is a real place.
Okay.
A Sri Lankan restaurant on Staten Island. There's actually a few that are amazing. I didn't name it by name, but the
Hmm.
one that I was referencing in my book is called Lakruwana, and it's just delicious food. There's also another amazing Sri Lankan restaurant in Staten Island called New Asha. So,
Hmm.
yeah, I definitely, the pizza place is modeled after a favorite pizza place in Brooklyn. So yes,
Hmm.
there are real
Hmm.
restaurants. One of my favorite things about New York City is just discovering new places to eat. So
Yeah, and
yeah.
there's so many. I feel like I've only like in the last year since I moved to Boston, I've only been to New York one time, and even then, like as soon as I was leaving, like more and more things kept adding up on my bucket list of things to see in New York and places to eat at. So I'm excited that this book has given me a good guideline of food places that I need to check out when I go
Oh,
next
I'm
time.
so glad. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a food lover's dream city for sure.
Yeah. And I mean, even in this book, like I feel like the way you even described it, I feel like I don't know if this is something you would want to consider, but like I would love to see a book that has like I don't know, like a character who's like a chef or something, because like the descriptions you have for food in this is so good. Like I was hungry every time reading some of the descriptions Shriwati has, like when she's going to those restaurants with Amaya. Like it was amazing.
Thank
So
you. Yeah, that was
yeah.
the hope. The hope was to get people interested in Sri Lankan food. So
Yeah, definitely. I haven't tried a whole lot of Sri Lankan food, but it all sounded so good. And like in some ways, like it has similarities to food I've grown up eating. So it was like nice to see the way different cultures have like, or like do with food in similar but different ways, I feel
yeah.
like. So that was, yeah, very interesting for me.